Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Get What It podcast. Today, my guest is, and everybody listening to this will be impressed if I get this right, because girl, I screw up last names horribly. So, Cynthia Orduna.
Perfect.
Did I say it
It's perfect. Yes.
right? Just so everyone listening and watching this knows, I had practiced that a few times before I actually said it. So, all right. So we're going to learn all about Cynthia here. And, but I always like to first ask, where are you? Is that like you're are you sitting outside?
No, I am actually in a WeWork. I am lucky enough to have my own little office space in a WeWork because they were coming in at very, very amazing prices. And I locked myself in until July. So here we are.
Oh, well, that's great. So where is here?
In Los Angeles. I am near the beach in Playa del Rey.
All right. All right. So some Pacific time. So, all right. All right. No wonder you didn't want to go grab a glass of wine. It's only like 2:00 there, right?
I was about to say, you're like, go grab a wine. I was like, it's 2:00, but I mean, any time is
here. So you're all good because it's 5:00 here, Eastern Standard Time. So you're good. You are good. All right. So Cynthia, start off. Tell us about your background, how you got where you're going, how you got there, your journey, all that good jazz.
Yeah, so I started working in human resources about 6 years ago, which is crazy to say because it feels like it was just yesterday. But this was my first paid job and I was extremely happy to be there. But while I was there, I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on around me because I was young and excited and really enjoyed being there. But a turning point for me, especially very early on, was when I filled out the EEOC report for that company. And I realized that I was the only Latina working in the organization in a non-janitorial capacity, and that 80% of employees were white males. So not too long after that, I transferred into tech recruitment, which I soon realized was another industry that I found myself in where people did not look like me. And there wasn't a lot of representation. So I found myself searching for communities and other women that I could connect with and I could look up to, or people that could give me guidance. And so it was during that time that I realized how important I was in this new role, because I was now the gatekeeper that had the power to give people from underrepresented backgrounds an opportunity, whether in that tech industry or at the very least that first interview. And so in recruitment, I fought and advocated to create a more diverse pipeline. And I worked with CEOs and VPs of recruitment and hiring managers to get them to see that people were qualified for these roles, even if they didn't look like the perfect candidate, which I always say does not exist. The perfect candidate does not exist. But I got tired of working within a system that I knew was broken and that didn't give me much wiggle room to change it. So that's one of the many reasons that I've dedicated my career to uplifting diverse voices in the workforce by coaching on career development, self-advocacy, and allyship. And I do that now by working full-time as a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, and then offering career coaching services on the weekend.
Because that's not enough to do during the week. So you go ahead and open up your weekends to that?
Exactly. It's never enough.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So you had an aha moment.
Yeah.
And okay. And that was when you were in human resources.
That was when I was in human resources that it took. And I thought it was so crazy because I was like, why did it take an EEOC report for me to fill out to realize that I was the only person here that was different? And I didn't really know what to make about that at the time, but it really did bring my awareness to the lack of diversity within the company.
So were you HR in a tech company?
I was HR. It was a visual effects company.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then how did that transition to a recruiter in tech?
Yeah. Well, I actually was doing some career coaching a little bit in between human resources before I transferred into tech recruiting. And specifically the company that I wanted to work for, they were an external recruiting company, and their mission was all about helping people that, not necessarily from underrepresented backgrounds, but helping people who don't look like the perfect candidate still get the job and get the job very easily. So a part of that role was part career coaching, part recruitment. So everyone that I helped get a job, I was also working through with on how to go about their interview, or if there's any tips that the employer gave me that they can have that insight and that knowledge so that they can, really make a difference in their interview process and get an offer at the end. So it ended up being a little bit of a mix, which is why I was very drawn to it, because it had a mission of supporting people, and it was also coaching, which is something that I had done prior.
Gotcha. Okay. But you're not there anymore, correct?
No, I was laid off from that position, actually.
Was that due to COVID?
Yeah, in 2020.
Okay, so COVID affected that role.
COVID affected that role, yes.
Okay, all right. And so you're laid off and you're surfing one day. I just assume everybody in California surfs.
I do not surf. I tried to do it
okay.
once and I almost drowned. So
but see, you tried it. So
I did.
My theory may be correct no matter what. So
you have to at least do it once if you're from California. Maybe that's the
maybe. All right. So you got laid off, and then like what are your like thoughts, right? When you get laid off in that position, and then you had to have an oh shit moment, right?
I definitely did have an oh shit moment. I had actually started doing the career coaching business on the side in around January of 2020. And so what was really interesting was I was telling people and teaching people at the time, because I was still in recruitment, how to get a job during a pandemic and what to do when you've been laid off. And so when it happened to me a few months later in April, I had an oh shit moment of, what am I going to do? Because I had actually done it and supported other people in the process, but because that experience is so traumatic, I think losing your job is a very traumatic experience. You forget everything that you know for a split second. It's almost like when they say, doctors can't work on family members because they're going to forget training. I felt the exact same way, because for a second I was like, I have no idea what to do. And I just want to sit down and cry for an hour, like hours and hours, and just not think about this. So what was good about that was that I actually still had my coaching business to support me and supplement my income for the coming months that came. And I really just utilized that time to almost take a break, because I had realized how burnt out I was from the tech industry. And, the challenges I think that just come from working at a startup in general. So I was coaching and just healing really from burnout until I found my next role that I wanted to go into, which was in DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion. I got laid off in April, started my new job in October.
So I'm going to go with a different company.
Yes, I started working for a different company. This company is specifically a DEI consulting firm. So that's why I'm a DEI consultant underneath them. Can
you say who the company is? No, that's okay.
I haven't asked, but
right. We'll just say the firm. Can we just say the firm?
The firm, sure. Yeah, we'll go with the firm.
All right, we'll go with the firm. Okay, so you get this position, and I'm good. So as you know, being in tech, not only is it underrepresented minorities, but it's underrepresented women in tech, correct?
Yeah.
And that's what we find in the tech industry, that it's not only underrepresented minorities in general, but it's higher that it's women. So So as you're in this role, so what do you go into companies? How does your role work now?
Yeah, so in
Which, by the
working,
way, I think is fabulous.
thank you. Yeah, so working in DEI, every DEI firm is different. Our specific firm does essentially an audit process. So we're looking at all of your processes from, hiring, recruitment, interviewing, to what happens after someone is onboarded. What does their career development look like? What does their promotion process look like? What does feedback look like? All the way up to, social events, and what you're necessarily doing to create an inclusive culture for your employees. And so we go through that entire process so that we can actually see where you're doing well, but also what places can be absolutely improved. And we actually get to see the numbers of what is the representation of your specific company. How does that add up to, the full tech industry? Are you doing what an average tech company would be doing? Are you a little bit better off? Are you under that? So that we can really evaluate where you are as a company. And then we work on your, DEI roadmap, which is how do we change the processes that you have to make it more inclusive, more equitable? And, do we need to give a few types of workshops? So anti-racism workshops, or gender workshops, bias workshops, hiring workshops, to help you through that roadmap and really help you change your processes.
I mean, that makes sense. Girl, have there ever been moments where you've been, and you can be honest here, where you're sitting with a client and you're like, you're bad, your stuff's bad here?
I think
you probably say it really nice. You're like, oh, well, I could see some improvement, right? I would be like, this is bad.
Well, I think, yes, you definitely look at companies and you're like, this is pretty bad. And more often than not, that's how you're going to feel. You're not going to feel like, oh, they're doing all these great things and we have all these things to celebrate. You're more likely going to feel like there's a lot of work to do here. And we have to figure out a way to present that so that executives don't feel depressed after the meeting. Because for anyone, if you're getting feedback and you're only hearing all the things that you're doing wrong, that's not going to give you the motivation to do this. And you do have the right intention by coming to a firm to say, I want to build a more diverse and equitable company. So your intention is there. Okay, let's tell you about all the things that you are doing super, super well. And then let's dive deep into what we can improve from there.
You're like, and then we're going to talk about the shit that you're not doing.
Exactly.
Oh boy. Okay. So I just ask random questions because I get fascinated by things. Have you ever made somebody so mad?
I have not made someone mad, but
like a client, I guess I should say.
Clients, I've never dealt with an angry client. I actually think what happens working in the DEI industry in general is you're going to get mad a lot. And you have to figure out how to deal with that, because you're going to deal with more microaggressions than you would in a typical workplace, because you have to talk about these difficult topics. You're going to deal with more people having pushback. You're going to get people that are a little frustrated with the plan, or maybe say, I don't really see why we need to fix this portion if it's a smaller percentage of the company that feel this way, because a lot of times people are going to try to fight you on numbers or play devil's advocate, right? Because normally the way you look at data, you say like, okay, what is the top percentage of people saying? That's where we're going to go, not necessarily what the smaller percentage of people are saying. So it contradicts, I think, what you've been taught, especially if you've gone to business school. Right. So you have to you're internally dealing with things yourself when people are saying, I don't feel like that's important. And you're trying to fight to explain why it's important. And also, this is why we were hired, to tell you how to improve the company. So it's almost, how do you deal with being angered on your own? You have to figure that out, not necessarily angering the client.
So do you go to like title boxing or boxing fight clubs to get that aggression out? Because you could be sitting there and I could just imagine, like, I could literally be throat punching somebody right now and it's, I don't want to say ignorance. It's just lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you must have to go to you probably go out to some big fight club out there in California to release your aggressions.
Well, I'll do more yoga, meditation, but what's different about working in this industry is that if there's anything to ever happen, you can actually go to your coworkers or your boss and talk about it, which is a very big difference, I think, when you're working in tech, specifically at that tech company, and something happens to you and you don't know whether or not you can go to your boss. Do you feel comfortable enough with this person? Do you feel safe enough with this person? You don't know if you can go to HR. Every single company is very different. A lot of times people don't feel like they can go to anyone. Sometimes they can go to a colleague, maybe sometimes they can't. So the difference here is anything that happens to me internally, externally, work-wise, whether it's about gender, race, anything that's nitty-gritty and that's normally taboo to talk about, we very much openly talk about at this company. So it allows you to actually process what happened, process what you're feeling, and not have to think about how you're going to say it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So you have a kind of a support system.
There is a support system, and I think it's just specific to the field, but all of our clients, almost all of our clients are tech companies. So I'm still very much in that world and dealing with everything that comes with that.
Totally understood. But this, who you're working for now is not a startup, right? This is, or is it?
Yeah, I think they started in 2018 or 2019 was when the company was founded.
Oh, okay. So they are.
Smaller consulting firm, yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. So I always like to ask these random questions. So you said yoga. Is there anything else? Oh, and you like to surf with the sharks. I got that point.
Mm-hmm.
What other things do you do out there in sunny California?
Well, not much since the pandemic happened. Yeah, I'm big on, like I said, yoga, meditation. I have been trying out a new type of exercise. I'm not very big on exercise. I'm the kind of person that would rather never do it.
Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you.
Before the pandemic, I was going to dance classes twice a week because that was fun, just to go to a dance studio, but then that closed. So I've been trying to find some fitness classes that aren't too intense and kill me, but can give me a little bit of a workout. So I've been trying that out, but I paid for the membership and I've only gone twice. So we're probably canceling soon.
So with COVID, how has that affected? I mean, it affected your life personally by being laid off, but as far as being in this new role and how that is, have you seen the difference? I mean, from your perspective, everybody went virtual. How does that affect the companies you're working with? Because a lot of times people will have said on the podcast that interaction people have isn't happening anymore like you would in the office. And people are feeling alone and unsupported and that kind of stuff. What have you seen on your side?
Yeah, it's something that I hear very often, especially when I'm working with companies. So many people feel isolated. They feel like they can't reach out to their coworkers just to grab a coffee chat, or take the time to just talk about nothing and everything, because something should be set up for work. If you're going to be setting up a meeting, it should be work related or project related. And people don't feel that they have that outlet or that opportunity to meet with their colleagues and have that extra fun time. Or maybe they're so burnt out that they don't even want to. Like, another virtual call sounds more exhausting, but then you're still feeling isolated and you're still in the state of exhaustion and burnout. So it's affected. There has not been one company that I've spoken to that it has not affected, and everyone is going through it. But I think, you know, to move forward from that, you really, as a company, need to think about, okay, what are the dedicated hours that people should be having? And really have an openness about, if you want to talk to your colleagues, you know, set aside X amount of time and schedule that out so that it doesn't feel like I'm working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night because I'm constantly getting notifications. So it's more about, I think, really developing your culture, whether you want to be an asynchronous culture and you want to say everyone can work their own hours at different times, or if you want to be a very specific culture on certain hours, set those hours and make sure that notifications aren't being given, or allow people to close them off at a certain time so that you're not feeling like you're constantly on.
Yeah, definitely. It's been hard, but, you know, and I can only imagine, like, I'm not shy, so I will like get on Teams and call somebody. But I can imagine somebody who's, especially in the tech industry, an introverted individual, and if you're one of the minorities, you might not think like, oh, I can just call somebody and say, hey, what are you doing, or how's your day going, or that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's tough. So do you have any of your clients said that they're going to be back in person, or are most of your clients in the area that you're at?
No, we are, they are cross country worldwide. So I have
Okay.
many calls with Germany, with Japan, with London, all around. But I have heard some people say that they want to go back to the office and there's a specific, you know, expected date on when they plan to, but there's no plan in place necessarily. It's more, we're estimating we should start our back to the office plan around here. That can always be pushed. So nothing is set in stone. And I haven't spoken to a company that is like, we've created a plan, we know we're going back to the office at this time, because I think right now it's so unknown and we're only all starting to get our vaccinations now. So
Right.
if anything, I think it'll probably be pushed a little bit more, but no one has really had a set plan of, we need to get back to the office now.
So when you have to have a call with like Japan, what do you have to adjust your hours? Girl, they're like, what's the time difference?
I don't even know the time difference. I don't pay. I just get on calls, but typically when I have crazy hours with clients that are outside of our time zone, I will swap my schedule. So I'll say, I'm not going to allow people to schedule anything in the morning or the afternoon, and I'm going to swap it for a later one, or an earlier one. So after like 2 p.m., if I have a very early call, then I'm off of work. So I just make sure that I'm scheduling that out so that I'm not working from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
So that's typically how I go about it in terms of flexibility, to make sure that I'm not burning myself out.
Makes sense. Yeah, because people, it's too easy. The computer's at home, everything's connected. It's too easy to not jump on and get that. But do you speak German?
I do not speak German.
Oh, do you speak? I feel like, are you like bilingual? Because how do you communicate?
Yeah, so I am bilingual. I speak Spanish, but I've yet to have a Spanish client. So that's unfortunate in my situation.
Man.
But most of the clients that we work with, they have offices based in the US. So everyone speaks English. They're normally bilingual or trilingual or more, depending on, the area that you're based in. And so we typically speak English in the calls, but I always feel bad, at least just as an American, expecting other people to speak English. And sometimes people will even apologize, like, oh, I'm sorry, my English isn't that good, or sorry, I can't think of this word. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't speak any German. Like, I'm sorry, I don't speak any part of your language. So please, like, I will be here. I will work with you. We can figure this out together, but please do not apologize to me, because I can't even meet you halfway.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. I couldn't imagine. And like, with language barriers, the US, I mean, we talk short, right? Like we LOL things and make jokes, and and most cultures are like, I don't under what is happening. So it's different. So I can imagine that challenge just alone. So what do you think is your biggest? What is your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge in the role working in DEI, or
Yeah, like when you meet a client you get all that data and whatnot, what is like the biggest challenge you face?
I think in the work, the biggest challenge is always going to be your internal challenges. So a lot of times you have to balance what you're hearing from employees and what you're hearing from people, and what you want to report to the company, and making sure that you're supporting the company as much as possible. So an example of that is, I'm going on these interviews because we have to interview people at the company to know what's going on internally, just to get some qualitative data. And a lot of times those interviews can feel like therapy sessions, and you can get people that start crying on the call. You can get people that, are sharing their deepest, not so much secrets, but just experiences of what has happened to them. And every situation is so different. And it's hard to disconnect yourself from this person in the story, right? Because you want to be the social justice warrior that's like, I'm gonna help, and I'm gonna try to save as many people as possible. And you can't allow yourself to get angry because of this, because you are there to do a job, and you are going to be a part of creating a more inclusive culture, right? But you can't allow yourself to take in the emotions of someone else. And I think that's the most challenging part, is you are listening to so many stories. And that's when you're starting to also, really understand that there are multiple truths, right? Like, just because this happened doesn't mean that's not true, or just because that happened doesn't mean that's not true. And you have to really be able to hold all of those in one place and weave a story, especially when you're presenting at the end, to say, here are all of the intricacies and the complexities that are going on in your company. But I also struggled with feeling like, what do I do just in this interview? Especially if it happens to be a more intense interview, what do I do to make someone feel better? Because at this moment in time, there's nothing that I can do. And so I really focus in those interviews on making someone feel heard and acknowledged and supported. So if there's nothing else that I can do for you today, I'm allowing you to let it all out. And I'm here to listen, and I'm here to support, and I'm here to tell you that everything that you're feeling is valid and true. If no one else told you that, if anyone else told you that it's not real, or it was small, or it was subtle, or it wasn't someone being sexist, or wasn't someone it was, and you deserve to have that validated and someone believe you. So that's kind of what I focus there, to not get too much in my head and not become depressed.
Oh man, the emotional attachment must be crazy. Can't even imagine. Oh my God. Okay, so do you have like a big success story?
A big success story. I think in terms of the company, they do have, clients that they've worked with even like before me. Right now we're in the middle of audit processes, but they do have clients that have, from their initial, demographics that they had and the processes that they had, they have become much more inclusive and equitable, and it's shown even through their growth. So I think in terms of success at the company, they have had a lot of clients that have become better and they've improved. All of the challenges are never solved, but they are working towards it. And that's, I think, what we have to just accept. Like, we're constantly going to improve. It's never going to be perfect. But in terms of my, just personal success, I've had people reach out to me afterwards, just thanking me for being there, or saying, I've never felt so heard and acknowledged until I spoke to you, or I just appreciate you taking the time to listen, or just have shown me so much gratitude for something that I feel is very small. It's just a 50 to 60 minute conversation, but I've gotten messages from people telling me how impactful that was. And to me, that almost feels like the most successful part.
Well, that's so sweet that people appreciate that. I mean, it's nice to know that people still appreciate other people. So, okay, so let's talk about the side biz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the side biz is career coaching, did you say?
Yes, the side biz is career coaching. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I started it, like I mentioned, in January of 2020, and it was right before the pandemic hit. But what had always bugged me and just bugged me so much about career coaching was the fact that it's so expensive. And it can be anywhere from like $100 to $300 a session. And me being me, it obviously sees that it makes it inaccessible for people who may not have the money to pay. And you normally need multiple sessions, but that's not always feasible for people. So that's why I had started a coaching business where, you know, my practice is about like $30 to $50 a session to make it equitable. And then I coach people on everything from interviews to resumes to networking to their branding or even starting their own side business. And I specifically focus on tech career paths or creative career paths.
And this is still around diversity, or is this just anybody, everybody can reach out?
This is anybody, everybody can reach out. I just have that like equitable value as part of me. So it was just in me starting my business, but it's not closing the door for anyone. It's just allowing people, whoever wants to work with me that may not be able to afford, you know, $300 a session.
Yeah, understood. Man, that's, yeah, wow. Do you have a website? Like, how do people contact you if they're seeking this?
Yeah, so I do have a website. It is orduna.com, which I know.
Oh boy, that just threw everybody off.
Threw everyone off.
Everybody's like, oh damn, what was okay.
So the only difference there is just the N has the little Nye in Spanish, but you know, typically I'll just send people the link. They don't have to worry about how to spell it. They just get the link to my business. And I started getting, you know, a lot of people that worked with me when I was a recruiter. And from there, because I was on LinkedIn, a lot of my clients just come from referrals of former clients that I have, or people that, you know, connect with me via social media on LinkedIn, because I post a lot of just tips and tricks every week for people. You know, if they, again, they don't have that monetary expense, they can still at least get some free content.
That's good. That's good. Well, your name will be attached to this so they can look you up in LinkedIn and then message you, because or Dunye. No, I didn't say that right.
Orduna.
Orduna. Oh
Yeah.
man. See, I'm old. My brain stopped working after I said it the first time. I was just proud of myself for saying it the first time. But I was just like, okay. All right. So the side gig though, girl, you could do that full time.
I could do it full time, and I was technically doing it full time after I got laid off because it was what was giving me income to continue to pay all of my bills. But I just wanted something a little bit more, you know. In a lot of these sessions, it's really focused on, you know, how do we get a job? How do we work on, you know, your interviewing skills? How do we get like a promotion and ask my manager for a higher salary? And I struggle with myself with both of these things, because I'm almost teaching people how to navigate a system that wasn't really meant for them to thrive. And on what I wanted was to actually face these systems head on and say, well, can we change them internally so that someone wouldn't have to go through something like this? You know, as a woman, especially if you're trying to negotiate your salary, you're trying to get a higher position, it's going to be harder for you than if you were a man. And then you can still be coached on all of the best and amazing tips and tricks for negotiation, and you might get backlash for it because there's a bias there on, you know, how a woman should act and how a man should act. And so I can support and help so much by giving all of these tips, but I also wanted to look at these systems and say, well, can we do something on the back end to actually change this problem so that you're not facing backlash for asking for what you're worth to begin with, and actually being given that equitable opportunity, or even just given the same salary to start with without having to fight for it. That would be
Right.
nice.
Yeah, women do not, every woman does not, man, they're worth so much more, and we do not demand that at all. And we should. I sound like I'm gonna start an uprising. We should. But yeah, but like, I have lots of anxiety around my rate. I'm an agile coach, and when it comes to it, I always have a lot of anxiety because I'm like, what if they think I'm not worth this amount, or what if I'm selling myself short? And dudes don't have that problem. They go in very confident, and yeah,
Mhm.
it's the difference.
Yeah. You see people, or specifically men, they don't even have it figured out. They've just decided that they want to ask for it.
Exactly.
And it works. But the problem essentially is that there is this bias. And they had a study done where they had a man and a woman give the same pitch to investors to invest in a company. And they said that the man's pitch was, more detailed, very comprehensive, really well done. And then when they were looking at the woman's, they were like, oh, I just feel like she doesn't have the right experience, or like they were finding holes in her story. And it was the exact same one that they had both pitched, but he was more competent, right? And it was just because of this perceived bias that you have, based on your experience in the world, on who you think is a better person to run the company, or who you think is a better person to invest in. And these investors were men and women. So we both have those biases. It's not necessarily that just men are perceiving it. It's men and women both play into these gender stereotypes more often than not. And again, it's not just about coaching on how do we get her to pitch the best pitch she's ever done in front of these investors. It's how do we get people on the other side to actually see their biases and see that they're not giving people a chance.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's where we're falling short, as a whole, organization, like companies. And so, all right, well, I love what you're doing. This is fabulous. It's so funny because with Get With It, I was trying to think of the community and the women and the underrepresentation we have within our community. And we're a safe space, right? Like, we encourage women to come and use us, we'll support you and empower you. And it's become really relevant as we continue to grow, that we need more diversity within Get With It. And so I love what you're doing, girl.
Thank you. Yeah, you asked, like, why do you do this to yourself? Why do you put the extra pressure on yourself? And I just can't, I cannot help it. There's just something in my being that is trying to support and change and morph the world in some way. And I think about not doing one or giving up one. And at this point in time, it just does not feel like I would not feel fulfilled without knowing both sides. But maybe one day I'll give myself a break.
Maybe, but you're young, so you can do it. You could be the superhero here. Definitely. So, all right. Well, I'm going to post in the show notes, and LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of you, message you if someone's interested in asking more about coaching or your diversity and inclusion and how that all works. Is that the best way for our community to reach out to you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn also has all my links. So it'll have the link to my website. It also has the link to, the consulting firm that I work at. And in addition to a YouTube channel that I do just to give people career coaching advice in general, if anyone just needs help, but again, doesn't want to hire a coach yet or doesn't feel like they want to invest in that. So LinkedIn would be the best place. But even if you reached out to me through my website or anything like that, I'm always available on all platforms. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate part that I'm always available on all social platforms, but I am.
That's the way we are right now, right? All right. Well, that is awesome. So I thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. And you're a busy lady. And I would have said you should have drank, but I understand that it's only 2:44 there by now. So maybe you can have some fun Friday. No, yeah,
No, I
maybe.
can. I'm not doing anything else after this call. So
You have the rest of the day off. So there you go. All right. Well, I appreciate your time and for coming on and telling us everything around your life and what you do. It's very inspiring, and I think we should stay connected. Maybe one day we'll have a Get With It chapters out there in California, and I can be like, go see my girl Cynthia.
Yeah.
I'll point
and
them
I'm always
direction.
there. I'm always there for any get together, any party, any person. That's I'm
happy
ready.
at an hour out, right?
Yes.
And maybe I'll just have to make a trip to California just for the fun of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to experience the different parts. We can't just say whether or not you could try surfing too.
I could. I'm really old though. I don't think I could stand on a board. So
there's no age for anything. I think that's another construct you tell yourself.
Until I break a bone and then